All
Welcome,
right.
everybody. Really appreciate you attending live or watching this recording later on. But welcome to the 2026 Partner Ecosystems Expo. I'm your MC for the day. I'm Chad Atwell with Candor IQ. We're an enthusiastic member of HRTA, and also we provide compensation, workforce planning, and AI-enabled modeling in this space. So we're definitely interested in partnerships. I lead both partnerships and customer success for our rather small, nimble startup. So appreciate the time to introduce ourselves today and also to network and get to know a few more of the members here as well. So we've got a great session coming up from Harbinger. Want to thank both Harbinger and Intro for being sponsors of today's event. Just a few housekeeping items. So we will be recording, obviously, the session. Everybody will have a chance to view that later as they need. I will go ahead and wrap up our discussion towards the end just to make sure that we get time for any Q&A or any other discussion that needs to come up as well. Certainly post comments and questions in the chat. Let us know if you want to remain off camera for the majority of the discussion. That actually helps the discussion or the video recording a little bit. But for the most part, you can come off mute and put on your camera for any questions or other discussions as well as part of that. And we will obviously we'll make all of those recordings available later. Uh, certainly the content is a big focus for today, but networking and just getting to know some of the different registrants, other people who are interested in these topics. You can find all that detail back in the portal under this particular session that we're having today. You can look at show registrants and be able to see who's attending or maybe wants to get the link later for the recording. And you can obviously share to social media as well, connect on LinkedIn, all of those great things as well. But with that, I will go ahead and hand it over to Shrikant and Subodh, and we'll go ahead and have them do their intros and then start us with our material.
Hey, thanks, Chad. Thank you for getting us started. Quickly, my name is Shrikant Padatal. I'm the Chief Technology Officer and President here at Harbinger Group. Been here for more than 2 decades now. Um, my specific focus is to help our technology as well as our sales teams, take our service offerings, which is predominantly, how to how to help organizations in their talent transformations, workforce enablement, as well as digital learning initiatives. Um, from a technology standpoint, how to bring about that transformation within their organizations, whether they are building products or whether they're implementing solutions. So Harbinger plays in that space, and my role is to work with our team to kind of build some of these solutions and help customers see how they can, benefit from doing these transformations. So looking forward to this conversation, which is around AI.
Great. Subodh.
Thank you, Shrikant. Thank you, Chad, and thank you, Warren, for hosting this session. My name is Subodh Bide. I work as the technology solutioning head at Harbinger. I'm also heading the HCM practice that Harbinger specializes in. Um, my primary focus when I'm talking with customers is to help them sort of decipher the whole maze that is created of hype and get to the real solution that they need for their business requirements. And that's what my proposal and solutioning team we try to do. So this session on AI and white labeling, I think it's coming in at the right time because for the past year or so, and possibly for the next another year, AI is going to be hyped quite a lot. So what are some of the very grounded decisions one can make? What are some of the frameworks for doing that? I think I hope we can answer some of the questions that are there around those in today's session. So it will help customers understand the whole AI cycle in a better way.
Very nice. Well, I'm going to be the moderator today. I'm Ward Chrisman, co-founder of HR Tech Alliances, that's hosting this event today. And we're thrilled to have Harbinger Group back. They are the HR tech builders of choice in the industry. And after 30 some years of proving it, it doesn't get much better than that. So nice job, guys. Keep up the good work. And, we're certainly excited to dive into the topic, which is, we're going to have a discussion here and Q&A with the ROI of like code development, and the best way to build these things. And if the world of development seems to move any faster, I don't know how it's going to go much faster than it is now, right? My goodness, with all the AI stuff coming out. So there's a lot of interesting stuff to dig into. And, at the end of the day is how is that customer, the end customer, usually the HR department and the employees and applicants, all the people involved in the HR and HR technology, the use of those tools and the content that goes with it, right? How is the ROI going to come out of all this? If there's no ROI, it's tough to justify to get the budget to do these great things that are happening or that people want to do. So with that in mind, we're going to dive into a couple of the questions. And one of the first thing in terms of the product owners at the HR tech vendors themselves, they love to build stuff in-house, right? They want to have that sense of accomplishment. But the question is, if do they need the full control to still get the end result? Because remember the customer, right? That ROI, how's that gonna work, right? So if you look at the costs, and I'll put this question to you, Shrikant, and Subodh, you're welcome to hop in then afterwards. You look at the costs and the business case, if you're gonna co-develop and collaborate with a group like Harbinger, for example, on building something for your customers on your roadmap, what's that look like as time moves on, whether you built it or you partner with a group and co-develop it?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and I feel, whenever we are pitching for our services, we sense that the software technology team who's building their solutions always, thinks that they need to own everything, or they need to build everything, or that's when it comes out right. I mean, it's even if I were in their shoes, I would think that way, because that's inherently with engineers, that's how it goes. um However, from a product, the product is one aspect of your solution, right? And what you're building and what your vision is, and stuff like that. But when you're trying to give end customers a value, there are many other peripheral things that comes with it. Sometimes it is, integration, sometimes it is implementation, sometimes it is data migration, sometimes it is, and all these have to be built as product features into your product. You cannot think about it after you've built it, or when you're trying to sell it. So you have to think about it in advance. And we have seen that in most cases, these things are undercooked at times. They'll say, oh, once the customer comes, we'll try to build it. And that's because, inherently the product team focuses on the core, and the peripherals probably get ignored. And I usually say to customers who are evaluating us, saying that, okay, you can do the core and do the peripherals with us to start with. You don't have to give us the core work, but you will see a lot of advantage in somebody who has domain experience as well as, technical know-how, to work alongside team, because your acceleration is going to be much faster. And when you land a customer or set of customers, your ability to scale is going to be much better than what the competition has. So so I think that's how the collaboration works. Of course, if you, like I said, if you undercook some of these things and build it over 1 or 2 years, you anyway have to redo it. So, but if you do it with a specialist partner and stuff like that, they probably have put in place the things in such a manner that, you know, will save you some dollars in time and money, uh, and help you sustain for a longer roadmap for whatever you invested in. So I think but I do understand that it's a hard decision for many technology companies to make. But I think, if they do it right, if they choose the right partner, I think, that they have that catalyst effect when it comes to growth, when they land opportunities or want to scale.
Yeah, that really hits the nail on the head in terms of having that external team that can scale, right? And part of what the cost factor is, which was kind of core to the question, is how does that compare when you're making that decision? If you're a North American company and you're trying to hire, top developers here, the cost is going to be a big
Yeah.
difference, and your budget's going to be your number one thing in the company, number one cost, right? So how do you scale that? And they want vacations and different things that are totally reasonable, but so I think just from an ROI standpoint, at least in North America, we just had the NFL draft
Yeah.
for football, and you're building a team, right? So that's great. You have a team today, but what happens when somebody quits, or
Yeah.
they get sick, or they're not available? It's not just about the product roadmap. I think there's an inherent cost in just trying to build a team, and knowing you have the right, as you pointed out, the right qualifications, which a group co-developing with a group like Harbinger, of course, you have a whole huge bench of people that you can pull from when needed to keep things moving. And that, I think, is often forgotten. But I don't know. So, Bodh, if you have any point of view on this, you want another question lobbed your way, what would you like?
No, I think Shrikant and what you have covered it well, and yeah,
Yeah.
that's how things are going to evolve, and you can, nothing much more I can add to what's already being said over here.
Okay. Um, well, let's take a jump into some of the agentic AI stuff, if you will. And, um, when it comes to agentic AI and the skills first, type of features that a lot of companies have been building to or trying to or thinking about it, what does that mean? And if you're looking to build it internally or even code development versus, let's say, a white label, maybe white labeling something that's already out there, how does that compare, from a traditional HCM module, like particularly the bigger ones like payroll or benefits or something? Uh, what's the dynamics there when you're looking at, maybe you've done that before, you white label the payroll system, but now you're like, okay, we want to own something. What are the options there for typical HR tech vendor?
Sure. So what the way we are sort of trying to reframe this is these are two fundamentally different set of solutions that one is trying to build. So the traditional HCA modules, it could be payroll, it could be a time and attendance, it could even be a learning management system, uh, the traditional ones. So these solutions, they've been around for decades. The rules are well documented, the compliance requirements are known, the edge cases are known, uh, and the whole thing is very, very predictable. So whether you try to build something in-house, whether you white label something, you're essentially onboarding an entire solution. The outcomes are known, it's very, very predictable. It's extremely low risk. There's low risk of something going wrong because the
Mm,
solution is known, and it's manageable if something goes wrong. But when you switch to the agentic AI side of it, it's like the exact opposite of it.
Hmm.
Primarily because the whole field, it is still being invented. It's still evolving. There are like new LLMs that are coming up almost every day, every week. There are newer versions coming of it. There is Claude that is trying to disrupt the whole party with some of their own agents that they're bringing on. And at a broad level, there is no consensus about how organizations, how technology builders are going to use skills. There are no specifications for skills and ontologies or how agents are going to move across systems, use information from, let's say, an LMS, from an HRIS, from a productivity system. Ultimately, the ownership of skills is still being debated. So whether it's the responsibility of a talent management system, whether it's an HRIS responsibility, uh, some LMS providers think that they might end up owning the whole skills ontology. So the whole thing is sort of in some kind of a churn, and
Hmm.
this is going to take time to settle down. And maybe it's like immediate, maybe it's going to take some time, but one have to keep in mind that unlike payroll, there are not going to be any specifications. There are not going to be any rules of how systems need to be built. So primarily uh, when a technology provider is trying to do something around the agentic AI part, skills, for example, they have to keep in mind that two things. So, A, if they go with a partner, they're essentially relying on the partner's capabilities and their investments in something that's unpredictable and evolving. So, they would rely on the partner to make certain bets and at the end of it, get benefits out of it. And the second part of it is if they try to build something in-house, they're going to be locked in one particular path. And if they make certain assumptions, then pivoting from those could become difficult. Adding to what Shrikant said, it could add substantial tech debt into the whole equation. And
Yeah.
they might find it more difficult than a partner whose business might be built across on top of skills. So partnering could be a wiser solution, white labeling could be a wiser solution. But at the end of it, one has to figure out where the niche lies, where the time to market is going to be more important.
Yeah, I love that what you just mentioned there too. And I was thinking about the skills like taxonomy. There's a number of companies that offer that. And if you're not in the business of creating the content, how are you going to get the content? The same thing, right? So you compare that to like payroll, it's like, well, you stand up a new payroll system. If you have an old one, you're going to migrate data. Somebody's going to help with that. How many times does that get forgotten? So
Absolutely.
yeah, you look at agentic AI, the same issues are there, same challenges. And uh, but to your point, I love that it's a different approach. It's the opposite, really, right? And you you lose, there isn't, I don't, anybody's white labeling agents anymore, I guess, unless it's Claude or something and you're just saying, hey, it's mine. But that's, I mean, who builds it, right? In HR tech, I don't know anybody, almost nobody building their own LLMs or whatnot. So why would you, try to build the agentic components if somebody else can do it? And I'd probably more up to speed on what that is. So having that external group for thought leadership and you know pragmatic market awareness is huge. You get your company to run and all the core data already there, and not data, the core platform. So yeah, great points. Srikant, I want to jump in on that question or take another one coming?
Yeah, I like what Subodh has said that certain core modules when it comes to HR, they're pretty independent and they probably don't need too much of white labeling and stuff like that. But some things that are you know around talent management, around recruitment, which combines a lot of solutions, and therefore there are a lot of complex workflows, a lot of different ways of doing things.
Hmm.
There may be opportunities to white label more and partner more, because you cannot inherently create all of those. in your product. And if you are in the AI space, beta testing some of those, right? Because you don't want to build everything, because you don't know whether the market exists as well. Because the whole way of doing things with a skills-based approach, the whole talent management from that. So yeah, I mean, in those kind of situations where it's like a little bit more broader and open-ended, um, and you're not too sure to bet all the money on it end to end, and then it makes more sense. That's where the whole partnership and the white labeling is so attractive, right? I think the main challenge is how many barriers you put and how complex you make it, so that most of the times what we have seen is the intent to white label is there, but the whole thing is so complicated that it by the time it happens, it takes like months or years. So that I think, hopefully with the whole AI way of doing things, it may be more conducive or easier. Let's hope that. So
Yeah, let's hope so, at least for like connectors and whatnot. But at the same time, if you're getting some of these connectors from other parties and they get acquired, or you need to change something that they won't change if you either build it yourself or you have a white label partner, and it makes sense for what the market is asking for, you have a lot more options.
sure.
Yeah, certainly when you co-develop it, I think even probably more options, because if eventually you're going to want to get acquired, and if all your connectors are with Workday and you want to get acquired by SAP, what do you
Yeah.
do? It's like they're not going to find you very
Yeah.
appetizing. But if you own the tech, or white label, at least it's more hopefully more plug and play.
Yeah. 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 Makes sense.
All right. Well, let's take another look, or look at another question here around HR workflows, and how AI agents are transforming that. I mean, companies like ServiceNow and WalkMe and others have done a lot around the user interface to workflows, but whether it be underneath the UI layer, or part of it, how do agents help do that? And if you look at the messy legacy data, you know, and either migrating that, and this new interface now has to figure that out or deal with it. What are some of the issues for cleaning it and mapping it and validating it? Let's call this data, migration, or data creation, or content creation, right? Learning skills and all that stuff. How can people plan for that without underestimating the challenge to build agents around that? Who wants to take it?
Yeah, maybe I can share some thoughts, and maybe Shrikant can add on to that. So what the when we are so we had a couple of examples where we actually built agents for some of our customers who had accumulated data for like several years.
Hmm. Yeah.
And when we started sort of doing the implementation, the customization of some of these agentic frameworks, what we realized is that the data was it wasn't at one place. Forget about it being in a similar format, but it was spread across 4 to 5 different systems.
Hmm.
And now the whole agentic project was sort of set on the side. It became a major project to get the data together so that the agents could make any sense out of it. So it sort of was looking up as though whether it defeated the purpose of having the agents, because the whole agentic approach, it would thrive on data. It can understand data that's in a raw format, but there are chances that it will end up going wrong if the data is extremely disconnected, if it's very, very, I would say, not readable for the agent. It's going to end up giving you wrong recommendations. It's going to end up giving you incorrect workflows and so on. And very quickly, it became like a three-party problem where whether the agentic um, provider or the AI provider was to solve the problem, whether it was Harbinger who would solve the problem, whether the customer who was bringing these four systems, whether they were going to solve the problem. So eventually we figured out a way, but that led us to learning something very new where uh, a good data warehouse or a good data lake, if it's created up front, it's going to be a key success for some of the AI projects that one would undertake. So that would be a very crucial thing. And this is going to be particularly important because, again, going back to some of the traditional ways of traditional systems that existed, they know how to exchange data between two systems. So data migration is not big over there. But with agentic, if the expectation is that the agent or the AI model is now going to figure out or draw inferences across multiple data points, those
Mm.
data points need to be readable to that particular model. So that's where a messy or a sort of a blurry data ecosystem could reduce the effectiveness of an agentic solution. So that's what my take is on that part.
So you'd recommend perhaps spending a little more time upfront planning what that migration might look like before you
Yes.
even start building any kind of agents to support it once it's there, right?
Yeah, because it's the whole agentic AI, it's like the big shiny object, right? No one really understands that the shine is going to fade away if the data doesn't exist. So
Mm.
so one needs to be wary that okay, they need the data for it to work.
Yeah, good point. Especially if you have it and you need to get it into the new shiny object. That's a challenge. Um, Shrikant, anything on that? You want to look at a different question?
No, I think I agree with Subodh since he's actually worked on those projects. I think he's seen those challenges. But yeah, the main thing is, uh, most people work with AI, they create the ecosystems, the workflows, um, and that's what we say that, okay, it's ready for production. But when they go to an enterprise and they suddenly see, oh, the kinds of information and data that is coming in now, they were not prepared for that. So somebody has to then, like he's saying, clean it, make it better, change it. Um, so it seems like for all your questions, we seem to be the solution. But
Imagine that.
yeah, but that said, I think what probably
Yeah.
platforms and enterprises need to do is they need to probably understand that this connection needs to be made and this transformation needs to be made. And in most cases, it's not going to be like a turning off of a switch. It will require some engineering and some creativity around it. That's when you know, and then if all these things work correctly, it's like assembling a Lego block, right? I mean, that's when it comes out right. Otherwise, it'll break in terms of if it doesn't fix things properly, it will not work. First steps, few steps it takes out of production, you will see issues. So yeah, I think the whole this thing about data mapping, getting all these things right, and somebody has to do that job. So so I think it's time in there's a lot of time needed for that. There's a lot of effort, planning, and thinking needed for that. So you need to give it that space and thought.
Yeah, and what I hear from most companies is their biggest complaint with these HR platforms when they install them is you've got somebody who built the tech, you've got installation experts, and then they leave, and then it's the company that has to
Yeah,
make it work. And if the tech's working great, but the data didn't come over properly, that may not have been noticed until the very end. And then the project either continues on and gets very much more expensive than their
true.
plan, or there's a lot of pain and suffering as the people try to work with what they have until they're able to finish the migration or re-migrate, which happens. I remember it was probably a year ago we had a panel and we heard that big pain point. So yeah, you hit a lot of good points around that. And the planning is and having somebody help up front, whether it be building the product or building the plan and then doing the migration, you hand it off to somebody that wasn't familiar with building the product, all of a sudden may
Hmm.
not understand it
Yeah.
enough. But that actually ties into the next question, which is pretty fun to contemplate here is what should be either white labeled or co-developed versus, is it, bigger projects or smaller? I mean, everything under the agentic or AI type stuff can be big, but it seems to be kind of very specialized. So, who, what do you recommend, be built in a co-development or white label environment compared to traditional offerings?
Well, I again, I don't have a. We need to look at the product and the solution to probably see how the white labeling should be done. Or sometimes it's also, you know, it's a build versus buy decision, right? So why do you go for white labeling? Is you want to go to market faster, you want to test something and then build something. So probably it's a validation sort of a question. So um, and the future, what we think is, and that's what we have been also talking to some of these software vendors, is that um, at least in the next 2 or 3 years, there will be in the HR or other domains also, uh, there will be a consolidation of all the products because if you're just a very niche platform, like doing one thing, let's say just saying, okay, doing interviews, for example,
Mhm.
uh, today with AI, any other platform can build that feature very fast. So, so you probably want to be as broad a player as you can, so that you're not just orchestrating workflows or creating automations within your platform, but across the board, right? It solves many problems, and therefore that it gives you that stickiness with customers, so that 6 months later, the ATS is not turning around saying that now we have interview. Why are you going and spending money on a specialized interviewing platform? Because
Mm.
AI helps build things so fast. So that's the kind of thing. So that way, I think I feel the smaller player or the mid-sized players wanting to more white label and say that, okay, become more like a platform solution. That may be a faster approach in the short term. Even with AI, though they want to build it, but building and maintaining is a bigger challenge. So the white labeling approach can be a good way to become extend your capabilities and have stickiness with your customers. So, so I think that's what we think, but it may differ from a product to product. Like if you are a recruitment product, if you're a talent management product, if you're a learning product, if you're a benefits product, as to what kind of white labeling things that you would benefit, sort of stuff. So
All right. Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. But of course, the typical consultant answer is, well, it depends.
it depends. Yeah.
But it's so true. I mean, everybody's got a unique situation. Their budgets are different. They're where they're at in their market maturity, their product maturity. And then, how nobody can keep up with their product roadmap. I know that. But
Yeah.
yeah, how are you going to do that? So if it's a big bite or even a small one, to your point, that maintenance too, and that's what people, I think, forget about.
Yeah.
We all grew up, a lot of us grew up in the age of you install software and then you use Microsoft Office for, 4 or 5 years and then maybe you upgrade it. But now things are upgraded daily. It's crazy, right? and what happens when they change the interface or the API or whatever the technology is that's keeping these things talking to each other. It's about anything on that, or you want to take a look at another question?
Yeah, just one point to add to that. I think many a times customers, they have this requirement of a very like a lightning speed time to market, and
Mhm.
that's where some of these decisions are made in a hurry. And it's going to be something where you whether you are reducing value of your product, whether you're improving value of a product as a trade-off for time to market. So again, it's a consulting answer, but yeah, it's going to revolve sort of between three or four such points that the decision has to be made.
Yeah, very true. Yep, I lost my questions here somewhere. Where'd they go? Oh no. Oh, there. All right, we'll cut that out later. The so Srikant, this one's for you. All right. Companies use white labeling often as a stepping stone, get the product faster, and help validate the market. Maybe it's not really what they should have been working on.
Mhm.
And then they build it in-house, and that can certainly provide an easier way to at least look at the ROI for not only the vendor, but also their customers, right? Because they can get their customers something maybe faster than if they built it themselves. So what's the framework look like, to go through that decision to build buyer or partner? And what are the key drivers that if you could give us a little recipe maybe for success that should be considered when you're doing that build versus, white label buy, if you will. Not maybe so much on the business. Obviously, if you're white labeling, you got to pay somebody usually ongoing, right? But not so much around the business um, ROI per se but on the product side, just
Mhm.
the fundamentals of making that decision, if you could help on that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I will go back to my earlier answer in terms of, also, but as you extend a, from a product, why do you want to white label or why do you want to OEM something, right? It's not an inherent product capability and you're not too sure, it should be your core uh, feature, and you're beta testing it in the market and it doesn't make sense for you to deviate your product team or your sales team to kind of go in that direction. So you are saying that, okay, we'll add this capability, we'll present it to customers, and if it really clicks, then we will in-source it or we'll change it at that point of time. So
And
the
that
whole
that clicking you mentioned, it really clicks. Where is that inflection point then? How do you know what you're looking for?
yeah, it's pretty much from a I would say from a revenue trajectory, if it hits like almost 10% of your revenue or 20% of your revenue, assuming you're more than $1 million,
Hmm.
that's when, and that usually used to be like maybe 30% or 40% in the non-AI world because building used to still cost a lot. But I think it may drop in the AI world because even if something once the recurring revenue hits a 250K, half a million mark, you may want to, for the OEM product solution, you may want to think that, oh, now this is kind of having its own kind of an identity and legs, and so we should start building it because building it might take 3 to 6 months, and what it takes, or
Hmm.
acquiring that product or whatever might be the exit plan and strategy. So I would say that decision point probably, could be at, 10% ARR of your total ARR. if it's above $1 million, would be a good point for you to start thinking uh, whether you want to now insource it. Anything lower than that, probably the cost, time, effort, everything involved may not justify it because you don't even have a core, like something like for 10, $15,000, you're licensing it annually.
Hmm.
Uh, your whole process of just starting and getting it done could cost you a six-figure number. So then it doesn't make any sense. So, so
Yeah,
and
no,
also and also towards, when you're looking at an exit, right? 12 to 18 months before that is a good time for you to also evaluate as to all the OEM solutions. Do you want to now integrate, you want to own them, or you want to build them and change that dependency and stuff like that?
you're talking
So,
about like from a corporate valuation standpoint, you'll
correct.
have a higher valuation if you own the
Yeah, of
technology,
course.
the IP, et cetera. Yeah. And maybe, Subodh, maybe you see this out there. Do you, when people do choose to white label something initially and they're thinking, at some point we're going to build it for either our valuation or just have more control, whatever it is they want. Uh, does that seem to be 2, 3 years down the road? Is that compressing more now with the rate of, development change before they say, you know what, we're going to start building this now, and then we can cut over, I don't know, in 6 months or maybe 2 months, depending on, how easy it is to replicate what you've been getting from a partner?
Uh, yes, in a way, and primarily it's reducing. To answer your question in very short, it is reducing, and that's because the time to develop, the time to market, the time to validate is shrinking. So the faster a validation is done, it strengthens the decision whether to part away from a partner or to continue with them. And hence, you really need to know what the partner is bringing to the table, how are they going to perform, uh, whether they're going to keep up the pace with the market changes that you are seeing. So that was one external aspect that I think I wanted to add to what Shrikant said, is one needs to also look at the partner's development roadmap. So if there is a divergence that's going to happen between your product roadmap and what the partner is thinking,
Mm,
then that's a clear sign that perhaps you need to sort of think differently. May not be immediate, but sometime down the line, because the partner is perhaps heading in a different market, they're heading in a different technology direction, whereas you are heading in a different direction. So while you have a faster time to market, are you on board a partner that's not going to sustain you far in that particular journey? So that's another way to look at it.
yeah, that's a good point. And, if they're a good white label partner, they're going to be sharing the roadmap with you, and you're going to be probably influencing it depending on how, how much of their revenue you're making up for them. So
Sure.
that all makes sense. I mean, it would, to me, from collaboration perspective, it would make sense to go with something already up and running if it's not core to your offering. And thanks, Shrikant, thanks for some of those kind of, sizing it up 10% or more, or something like that. It makes sense to look at it from that perspective as well. But it's always changing. That keeps it interesting. So from a governance standpoint, let's switch to some of that for a minute if we can. If you look at whether it be, the AI agents or even just traditional data hygiene and things like that, or even data migration, what, you know, what's involved in compliance and also just, speed to delivery if you need to be, how can you be cognizant of all the AI governance that's out there? What's the framework look like for basically looking back at what we just talked about here? what kind of things should be considered in the governance of the AI and data type projects that people are working on?
Yeah. So when we're talking with customers, there are like sort of three themes that pan out when they present their problems, and the whole AI governance is a new topic that's sort of hitting
Mm,
everyone, especially because uh, all the regulatory bodies have sort of woken up. And I think there are like 7 states in the US that have their own AI frameworks that they are rolling out. I'm sure the federal would have something very soon. EU AI is going to come up in August. So there are going to be regulatory and compliances that are going to come from all sides. So the three
yeah.
themes that we are sort of seeing evolve is, the first one is to see how well are you contractually protected. Is it
Mm,
just going beyond? Is it like staying at the standard data protection processing uh, points, or is it now going beyond? So is it having responsibility towards the regulators, certain response times for some of the queries or the audits that might come up? So that's an additional thing that one might need to look from a contractual perspective.
good point. Yeah.
The second aspect which we are seeing is the partner or the AI system that you have, is it audit friendly? Does it give you the right kind of information? Does it have AI governance built into it? Because all these AI models, they are going to change, they are going to drift, new ones are going to come up. So something that was tested and audited today may not be very relevant 3 months down the line, 6 months down the line. So you need to re-audit it. So does the AI partner have sort of a continuous monitoring, continuous governance thing built into them? So that's one thing to also consider. And the third one is, what we recommend is, the technology providers, they need to be transparent about with their customers about the whole governance aspect that they are providing or their partners are providing. And some might think that, oh, it's a weakness if we are sort of exposing all our cards and saying that, okay, we need an additional layer of governance. But in this uncertain time when like AI is being turned and twisted in different directions, this can actually be a differentiator. Saying that you have a strong AI governance practice built around your product, that's a sense of relief. That's a sense of trust that someone would have in your overall product or service. So those are like the three themes that we usually end up talking when it comes to governance, when it comes to data migrations in and around regulatory bodies.
So I presume if Harbinger Group builds some AI products, you'll help them understand what the governance requirements are for that. Is it something you guys do? What if you don't build it, they just bought it? Well, do you do audits for them? Would you do audits for a customer? Just curious, how do you get involved in that specifically?
Yeah, so we have partnered with some AI companies that are specifically focused on the very core of how these models work. So they are like concepts of teaming, red teaming, and
Hmm.
white label, like the whole whitelisting, blacklisting, looking at the kind of prompts that pass through it. So it's a whole uh, different scheme of things when you actually try to build a specification on how something's to be tested. But yes, at the
Mm.
top of it, there is a AI governance practice. There is an AI governance layer. There are checklists that can be run against different products. And Shrikant and his team, they are sort of building this as an offering that we can help customers with. Shrikant, you want to shed some light on that?
Yeah, so that's a yeah, I think you've articulated the need for governance. Now, and what we believe is, with any kind of, whether it's been an ISO in the past or whether it's been SOC compliance or HIPAA compliance, uh, the software team that is building it uh, probably doesn't understand. what it means to build a product that you can uh, or deploy a product that has all the governance capabilities built in. So and and customers also want saying that, okay, is the third party or a different software that has evaluated this? I mean, if you're writing your own evaluations and own governance, it only goes so far, right? Because you will not get so the third party assurance, the third party even if there are no rules and regulations at this point of time, that gives your product an additional leverage over a competitive product for the customers to buy, saying that, okay, this at least is claiming and showing me all the data and information. And like Subodh said, we have our own platform, as well as we're partnering with some AI companies which do these extensive governance, and we are helping our software, our customers who are building AI features to test it and around the various AI guardrails, which could be just best practices also, and plus some are like the New York State law and something of that sort, so that
Right.
customers can then uh, you know be more confident of deploying these tools in their enterprises for their employees and so forth, and not fear like they'll get sued or you know because they didn't follow the process.
That sounds like a good thing to have. Let me just wrap up with one kind of final question, just looking back at the original topics that we advertised for the session, related to data sovereignty and, knowing the AI ethics or, the where did the data come from, whether it's in an LLM that's being, leveraged to manage this new AI offering that you're helping build. So you've got the ethics and data sovereignty. We kind of, I think, touched on that indirectly, but just wonder if you could address that as a concern. How do customers, what should they be looking at or checking into in those areas to stay out of hot water, or at least to help their customers get a better product?
When you say data sovereignty, you means who owns the data, right? I mean, at the end of the day,
Right.
so from
Or even where did it come from?
Mm.
If you're migrating the data from their old, something they already owned, the customer, pretty straightforward. But if it's an AI bot that you built,
Mm.
where's it getting the data? Do they need to be concerned? Is there something that you could help them with in that area?
Yeah. Um, it's a it's an interesting question, and from a data ownership perspective, especially in the age of AI, where everything is getting scraped and put into AI platforms.
Hmm.
Um, However, data from an enterprise standpoint, if you look at it, it still has uh, whatever is out there in the public is probably it's there, but what enterprises use internally, the processes, the systems, their various ways of creating, a value proposition for their end customers. Um, that data, I think, will need will probably reside with the enterprises, and even whether vendor is building a platform or we are building it, or we probably need to make sure that there's different ways of handling this data as to how it is protected, how it is used only in a session, and not thrown out there into the LLM
Right.
for mass consumption. So around data sovereignty, how you manage it, there could be multiple levels built so that that protection exists. So I think that part is going to get more and more complex. Because it was easier in the SaaS platform and there was a database and everything, the sites behind it. But when you're using an LLM, which sits outside your system, and that is interpreting things for you, and you have to pass information there to kind of solve a problem or get a workflow built, executed. There is going to be multiple layers of authentications and data processing that'll come in as the AI system matures. So I think that's where the whole engineering depth as well as thought process uh, will be needed. And some of the partner products, I think Marilyn is here, like Galvico and stuff like that, what they're doing for the enterprise, right? So that they can build workflows seamlessly on top of it, is would be necessary in for the future as we scale.
Yeah. Well said. And I think a great way to end a great session. My brain's kind of full here. It's full new knowledge and even more questions, but we're sadly ran out of time. Chad, I'll let you transition, but yeah, thank you for
Sure.
sponsoring and thanks for a great content session here today. And the discussion was awesome.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Appreciate the insights and just hearing sort of like the under the hood kind of operational topics and everything, how this all works together was really great. So we will go ahead and send out that recording once it's ready for anyone who wants to see this afterwards. And then we are coming up at noon on the East Coast. So we're going to move over to our next session. I just put a link in the chat, which will take you back to our main schedule and to that next session for SAP. You'll be able to find the separate Zoom link for that. So we're going to go ahead and close this one out. But thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Chad. Thanks, Ward. Thanks, Madeline.
Yes.
Thank you,
Thank
Thanks a
everyone.
lot.
you.
Thanks.
Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.